The year was 1945. The Third Reich had fallen, and for thousands of German soldiers, the nightmare wasn't over. It had just begun. Dozens of weary soldiers marched through mud, their uniforms torn, eyes hollow. They dropped their rifles, raising their hands in surrender to a group of armed American troops. Do you think they'll shoot us? Fear grips every face. They've heard the stories of Allied revenge, of torture and death. American soldiers shout orders, separating officers from privates. But instead of rage, the Germans see something they didn't expect: discipline and restraint. The prisoners are loaded into trucks. They stare silently, expecting the worst, as the convoy rumbles down a dusty road toward the unknown. The trucks pass through a small French village. Locals glare. Some throw rocks. The Americans protect the prisoners, telling civilians to stand back. For many Germans, it was the first time they'd seen compassion from an enemy soldier. Night falls. The convoy stops at a temporary camp. The Germans are given food, real food. Bread, soup, even cigarettes. Their confusion deepens. A young prisoner stares at the steaming bowl in disbelief. He mutters, "Why are they feeding us?" An American guard just shrugs. "You're human, ain't ya?" Rain pours as the trucks roll again. The prisoners are told they'll be moved, not to a battlefield prison, but to a new land across the ocean. A giant transport ship looms in the harbor. The German POWs march up the ramp, guarded yet unharmed. For many, it's their first time seeing the Atlantic. Below deck, they sit in silence, surrounded by the smell of sea and diesel. A sergeant whispers, "They're taking us to America, to work, maybe to die." Days turn into weeks. The seas are rough, but the treatment isn't. They're fed 3 times a day. One even receives medical care for an infected wound. Cut to sunrise over the New York harbor. The prisoners crowd the deck, stunned by the towering skyline. One mutters, This is the enemy?" They're placed on trains bound for the heartland. As the countryside passes, green fields, small towns, the fear slowly gives way to curiosity. An American officer explains the rules. You follow orders, you get food, work, and respect. You break them, you lose that. Simple, fair, completely foreign to them. Train whistle blows. The camp gates appear, surrounded not by barbed wire and guard towers, but wooden fences and open fields. The sign reads, Camp Hearn, Texas. The Germans step off, expecting misery, but they see clean barracks, showers, and even a football field. Their disbelief is written on every face. A guard points to a mess hall. Inside, long tables, trays of hot food, and even coffee. The men freeze. "This can't be real," whispers one soldier. What began as a march of fear was turning into something none of them could comprehend: mercy in the land of their enemies. The German soldiers enter their barracks, surprised to find wooden bunks neatly arranged, blankets folded, and windows letting in sunlight. It felt more like a dormitory than a prison. Each man receives a uniform stamped PW for prisoner of war, along with clean towels and soap. They exchange confused looks. None of them expected such decency. At breakfast, they're served eggs, bread, and fruit. For soldiers who once survived on watery soup and moldy rations, the food tastes unreal. Some refuse to eat at first, thinking it might be a trick, but the guards encourage them, saying, "Eat up, you'll need the strength." Soon, laughter echoes through the mess hall. The men begin to talk again, sharing memories of home, wives, and children. Outside, they notice Americans playing baseball. The German soldiers watch curiously as a guard hands them a bat, inviting them to join. Within days, The prisoners form their own teams. Baseball and soccer games become a daily escape from the haunting memories of war. Letters from home arrive through the Red Cross. Some men cry quietly as they read about families struggling in bombed cities. Others just hold the paper to their chest. There are classes in English, carpentry, and mechanics. Even those who once fought fiercely for the Reich now sit in classrooms, eager to learn. Work groups are formed. Tending gardens, repairing fences, cooking meals. The camp begins to run like a small town, built on cooperation instead of fear. One guard teaches a few prisoners to play guitar. Soon, songs in both English and German echo across the camp at sunset. Music becomes their shared language. Some of the older officers still refuse to believe it's genuine. They whisper that the American weeks pass, yet no torture comes, no interrogation. Just routine, discipline, and respect. The doubt begins to fade. Medical tents treat even the wounded Germans. One doctor carefully removes shrapnel from a prisoner's leg, a gesture that leaves everyone speechless. As the bandages are changed daily, the doctor talks to him about baseball, not war. The German soldier silently wonders how his enemy became his healer. Sundays are quiet. The prisoners attend church services led by chaplains, German and American alike, praying under the same roof. The camp library fills with donated books. Some soldiers rediscover philosophy. Others draw, paint, or write poetry about peace. Over time, friendships form between guards and prisoners. They share jokes, stories, even photographs of their families. Humanity replaces hatred. A German sergeant writes in his diary that he never imagined he would feel safe in enemy hands. He calls it a strange kind of freedom. Months pass. The men are healthier, stronger, and more reflective. Many begin to wonder if everything they'd been taught about Americans was a lie. As days blend into weeks, rumors begin spreading through the camp about how Allied prisoners were treated back in Germany. Whispers of starvation, torture, and death reach their ears, and the Germans fall silent. Some can't believe the stories, but others admit they've seen it. They lower their heads in shame, realizing how differently they themselves are being treated. One prisoner, a former guard in a Nazi camp, stares at his American meal and mutters, "If only our prisoners had lived like this." His words hang heavy in the air. Letters arrive from Germany describing hunger and destruction. Cities are gone, homes reduced to rubble. Many of their families are struggling to survive. The camp priest offers words of comfort, reminding them that they are alive and that mercy exists even in war. For the first time, some believe him. The prisoners begin volunteering for extra work, helping in nearby farms to repay what they see as undeserved kindness. They work hard, earning respect from local Americans who once viewed them with suspicion. Farmers bring them cold drinks and smile when they work well. The Germans, shocked by the trust, start to smile back. A young American boy visits with his father, curious about the enemy soldiers. The boy shares candy with one of them, and the German almost breaks into tears. At night, men sit outside, talking quietly under the stars. They no longer talk of Hitler or of lost battles. They talk of peace, family, and rebuilding. Inside the barracks, one man writes that he feels freer inside these wooden fences than he ever did in Germany under fear. He wonders if freedom isn't about land, but about how you treat others. Some guards tell the prisoners stories of their own families, of brothers who fought in Europe, of fathers who died in the war. The Germans listen with quiet respect, realizing loss looks the same on every side. One guard and a German mechanic begin fixing broken tools together. Neither speaks much English or German, but they communicate through nods, gestures, and laughter. The mechanic repairs a tractor for the camp. In gratitude, the guard secretly gives him an old pocket watch, a symbol of respect that the German keeps for life. A few prisoners start painting murals inside the camp hall, not of war, but of peace, farms, rivers, and families smiling. Even the guards stop to admire their work. On Christmas Eve, the Americans organize a feast for both sides. They sing songs, first in English, then in German. The harmonies blend softly into the night air. The men who once fought each other now share food and laughter around the same table. For a few hours, the war truly feels like it has ended. In his journal, a prisoner writes that he feels ashamed of how his government had lied to them about American cruelty. He writes, "Here, I have seen the real meaning of honor." Months pass, and more men are released as the war officially ends. Those remaining know their time is coming, but part of them doesn't want to leave. They've grown attached to the peace, the routine, and even the guards who now feel like friends. Each day of freedom draws closer, but also feels strangely painful. Before leaving, the Germans hold one final gathering. They present the American guards with handmade gifts, carvings, drawings, and notes that simply say, "Thank you." The day of release arrives. The remaining German soldiers line up, their bags packed with memories more than belongings. They exchange glances with the guards, unsure how to say goodbye. Some men shake hands firmly, others simply nod. Words feel inadequate for the bond forged through months of unexpected kindness. A few soldiers hug the guards, tears streaming silently. Even the roughest, most hardened men cannot hide their emotion. They board trains once again, leaving the camp behind. Fields, barracks, and fences fade into the distance, but the memories of humanity remain. On the journey home, soldiers discuss how different the American camps were compared to Nazi ones. No fear, no cruelty, only care, respect, and order. One soldier recalls the Red Cross letters, the music, and the baseball games. He realizes he has been treated better by enemies than some allies had treated their own. The train slows as they near Germany. Smoke rises from destroyed cities in the distance. The sight of home is both comforting and horrifying. Villages are in ruins. Streets they once knew are rubble. Families survived, but many are missing, leaving grief in their wake. The soldiers feel a mix of relief and guilt. Relief to be home, guilt for having been cared for so well while their homeland suffered. One German officer reflects on the lessons learned in the American camp. He vows never to forget that mercy and humanity can exist even among enemies. Reunions with family are bittersweet. Tears mingle with laughter as they share stories of survival and unexpected kindness. They carry letters, diaries, and gifts from the Americans. Every item is a reminder that compassion can transcend hatred and war. Former prisoners return to towns devastated by war. They find neighbors and friends who survived, but much of the world they knew is gone. Many sit quietly at the ruins, reflecting on the strange irony of their survival. They were spared by the enemy, yet lost so much at home. In conversations with others, they recount the kindness of Americans. Some are met with disbelief, others with hope that humanity can still exist. They keep the memory of Camp Hearn alive in letters and journals. It becomes a story of compassion that will be told for generations. Years later, veterans meet former guards in reunions. Bridging nations once at war, friendships formed in a prison camp endure far longer than the battles ever could. The soldiers realize that freedom and dignity do not come from victory alone. They come from how you treat others, even in the darkest of times. Some sit quietly, remembering nights filled with music, letters, and laughter. They understand that true power lies not in weapons, but in mercy. The story closes with a thought that lingers. Even in war, humanity can survive.